Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage. Glenn Poulos is the co-founder, vice president, and general manager of NWS Canada, which is a leading product and service distributor for the mobile, broadband, and wireless markets. With over 3 decades of experience in sales, he has spent thousands of hours in the field or on the phone with customers and working with salespeople to help create several very successful companies. He's an avid skier and pickleball player, and he's the author of Never Sit in the Lobby: 57 winning sales factors to grow a business and build a career selling. Here to share with us his unique perspectives on sales and negotiations, please welcome to the show, Glenn Poulos. Glenn, welcome to the show.
I understand. Thank you for having me, and my compliments on a great intro there.
Oh,
Really.
well, hey,
you're talking about me, so I guess no wonder I liked it so much.
Well, you know what? And while we're just talking about introductions, this is just kind of top of mind.
Yeah.
You know, introductions, there's a little part of me that I read one time in a book, never tell an audience how good you are. They'll soon find out for yourself.
Yeah,
right. So
right.
there's that little humbleness kind of trying to stay humble.
Yeah.
But, you know, framing someone properly is very important because we build that authority. And that is an engagement principle, something that we talk to, you know, people that we train, is that we want people to listen. And if they know that there is importance built into it. And so that's why intros are so important. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so I want to kind of dig into, you know, your sales expertise and knowledge here. And something when I was doing my research, getting ready for this interview, I saw something and I mean, it is an acronym, WSP. So it's like, I'm not too sure. I'm going to guess, you know, something selling proposition or sales proposition, perhaps. What is this WSP that you talk about in your book, Never Sit in the Lobby? And can we, dig into it?
Yeah. So, so it stands for winning sales personality. And there was a more NSFW version of it from way back when, but the editors told me I had to change it to something more agreeable in the modern age. So winning sales personality it is. And you know, it is a concept that I call upon virtually every day. We call them show them the WSP. That's what so, you know, the word show and then you know, like apostrophe EM, right? Show them the WSP, right? And what that means is show them we call it the winning sales personality, but really what, you know, I assume you want me to explain the whole concept.
I do.
Right?
Personality. I mean, this podcast is engaging personality. So I want to dig into that big time. So go into that, Glenn, please.
So it's based on sort of this, the concept that attraction is not a choice, right? And so I go into some examples in the book, and then there's some examples I explain when I'm explaining it to people. But you know, if you walk by a nice car, a Ferrari or something like, it depends on what kind of cars you're into or whatever, right? But it doesn't need to tell you that it's a pretty hot car, right? Like, it just is by virtue of its own. And you are either, you know, enamored with that car or not, right? Now, if it was a beat up old jalopy, there's no way of prettying it up, right? Doesn't matter how loud you come into the parking lot and spin your tires out. If it's, you know, attraction's not a choice, right? It's all about the way you present yourself, right? And so, you know, and of course, some of this comes across kind of sexist in a way, because a lot of times I'm talking to men that are selling and they tend to exhibit male traits, which end up being unattractive in the face of the customer. And so in the book, I actually tell the story about, being at a sales seminar and when everyone went out to lunch and they all came back in and I started asking him a series of questions, right? And I'm like, how many people noticed it was a Mercedes GT or something like that was parked, 2 slots over from the front door. A bunch of people, but not all or whatever. A bunch of people put up their hands, right? And I said, and when you came by the front, the front desk to get back into this seminar room, there were 3 men, with really nice suits on, engaged in a conversation. How many of you people recognize those men there, saw those men, really engaged in a conversation and looking pretty sharp in their 3-piece suits or whatever? And none of them, virtually no one had recognized those people, right? And I said, okay. And just in front of the desk, there was a lady, she was about 5'9". She had this bright red dress on, blonde hair. How many of you noticed her? Everyone in the audience put
Everyone
up their
goes
hand.
up. Yeah.
Right. And of course, it does have this whole kind of, again, like sort of sexist vibe to it.
Well, we're into what we're into, right? Like that's,
right.
Yeah.
And the point is that when you see something that's attractive, male, female, a car or a house or, anything, a painting, I mean, it doesn't matter. You are attracted to it naturally, right? And so the point is, a lot of times sales guys and girls can do the same thing, is that they take on this braggadocious mentality about their presentation, right? So, rather than allowing the product to be shown in its best light, right? And so it's a matter of allowing, that's why I call it show them the WSP, right? Like let them see it. Don't tell them about it, right? Don't walk in and say, I have the box, this box is the best box in the world. It's, bigger, faster, wider, deeper, 20% cheaper, best in the world. If you don't buy it now, you're going to lose out. And, you have to get all that out of it. And you have to figure out a way to present the I often say box because I've always sold high ticket items. So I think of in terms of box, but it could be box, service, or whatever, but show that in a way where the customer can't live without the service or value that you're providing to them. And so that's where I go on. And there's another angle to it called this punch, perfect, pitch, and close, where it's a way to get people's attention through this process, which I call the punch, perfect, pitch, and close, right? And the punch is where you show them the WSP, right? Yeah. And so what I'm really saying is, don't be a braggart. Show the products in their best light. Let that light evolve naturally, and let people fall in love with it naturally, and they will, right? And just you can't walk in and say, hey, I'm really good looking, aren't I? I'm really, don't tell me I'm not good looking, right?
What this reminds me of, Glenn, is there's a quote, and I don't know if it's like what it's from. It's almost kind of more of like a Zen kind of quote. That those who know don't speak.
Right.
Those who
quiet
speak
person in the room.
know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like that kind of idea.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about with that winning sales personality is, exuding it, but not having to brag about yourself, like you said. Right? And so you just mentioned the pitch,
punch, perfect pitch, and close.
Punch, perfect
pitch,
close.
And close.
Let's dig into that, because and maybe you can weave into how that winning sales personality kind of goes in that. Do you have I guess like a scenario? Maybe we should set up a scenario just to kind of, what would that look like?
It'll be obvious when I explain it. Yeah.
Sure.
And so usually you're walking into a boardroom or something like that. There's a depends on the size of the sale. Again, I often sold high ticket items, so there might have been a finance guy there figuring out, can we afford it? And we're selling technical products, so it could be someone, an engineer, or an engineering manager, or CTO type, and other people in the value chain to figure out, again, we were selling high tech machinery and equipment and things like that, right? And so you'd be going into a boardroom visit, and there'd be different stakeholders in there and what have you. And again, there's 57 tips in the book, right? So I can oftentimes I have to pull myself back, because I'm all, before I even get to that boardroom or whatever, I've probably started way higher than I needed to, like with the CEO, right? And again, some of the stories in the book are fables, or if you will, right? Like I never sold tow motors, but a few times I refer to selling a company a new tow motor, a new forklift for their warehouse, right? And those things are like massively expensive, right? And so it's a huge cost to and so you think, who's the decision maker on a tow motor or something like that, right? Well, you think, oh, the warehouse manager or the, somebody in the logistics and warehousing piece of it or something like that, right? But this could be $100,000 vehicle, right? Which really governs the throughput of the warehouse and what have you. And whenever it's $100,000, you can bet that the CEO is probably signing off on it, right?
Right. It's more of a
So
CapEx thing almost, kind of,
yeah,
right? Like, so
exactly.
yeah.
So he doesn't really care about the tow motor. He just is the last signature, right? So I always start with him, right? And I always, I run through the scenario in the book and I will come back to the pitch, don't worry. But and I'll say, hey, this tow motor, we understand that there's a need in the warehouse for a couple units. I just wanted to get some time on your calendar to go over. I don't care about tow motors, and you should be, and they don't usually drop you all the way down to the lowest
Right.
common denominator. They kind of drop you down. You need to talk to the VP of warehousing, right?
Right.
And so I call him and I go, oh, I was just talking to Jack, and he said I needed to get a hold of you right away. We got this
Right. You
amazing
got
tow
that
motor. I don't care about tow
endorsement.
motors. You should be dealing with the Mississauga or the Toronto branch or the California branch manager for the warehousing. Bill, right? So I called Bill. I said, Bill, I've already been in front of the CEO, Jack, been in front of your boss, Sam, and these guys, they can't wait to get this machine into your building for a trial, right? He's like, oh, okay, and then eventually you get to the warehouse manager, the lead hand, the forklift manager, and eventually you're dropping it off, right? And when when I would drop it off or what have you, I would drop it off. Never fax the fax, never ship the shit, right? That's one of my rules in the book. It comes very early on. And hopefully it's okay to say that on your podcast.
And never sit in the lobby too, right?
Never sit in the lobby. Exactly.
Yeah.
Never
Okay.
sit in the lobby, right? And but never fax the fax and never ship the shit. So I always drop things off. And of course, when I'm on my way there, I would call the CEO again. I'd say, look, I know you don't have time for this, or depending upon the scenario, I might let them see the WSP of the tow motor that I was selling or the product, service, or what have you. And then I would call the CEO and I'd say, you know what, they're doing wheelies in the parking lot with this new tow motor. It's the fastest, most throughput they've ever seen. Sorry, I'll turn that ringer off. You should pop down for 2 minutes. This is your only chance to sort of have a look at it. And so oftentimes those people would engage with me in that manner, right? They think, well, I'm spending $100,000. The guy's there and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to pop down and have a look. And all of a sudden I'm saying hello to the CEO in front of people. And it's about establishing social proof and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, and the relationships in that too, Glenn, right?
Yeah.
Like solidifying that. And something you said too about like the never fax the fax, never ship the ship. You are going for the FaceTime. You're going for the in-person, piece that is going to be the relationship builder. And of course, during pandemic, virtual times, right? That is more of a rarity, right? We're not getting that. Doing that extra effort is so important because you cannot click you off if you're there, right? You can't just disregard the facts, right? So
yeah, exactly. And the prior to March 2020, right? I mean, people didn't even think about not being in front of the customer. Yeah. They only got extra comfortable in their chair at home during the pandemic, and now they just don't want to get up, right? And so it's not really that there's a new way of doing things. There was a way they had to do it for a while, and now they don't want to change back because of a perceived comfort, but they're actually losing an opportunity to be better and make more money and do everything better, right? It's not better to do it at home in your pajamas on the bottom and, party up top, pajamas on the bottom or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Or no, business on top.
Business on top, pajamas on the bottom.
Well, you could try it that way, but maybe you get even worse results, right? So, so Glenn, is that what you're kind of seeing out there, with your experience with, training, other companies and speaking to other companies, that they are struggling with their sales forces not going back to the old ways that are tried and true, that they're kind of
Yeah, and
stuck. It's like
our guys are back. Our guys obviously had, it was a change, right? And I'm not, and we recognize that we were, we adjusted along with them, and but yeah, I think a lot of people are. I think most of our people are back, fully engaged with the customers, and the customers are allowing us to fully engage with them. But it was not an easy task, right? It's just some people sort of made this new leap, that this was the new way of doing it, right? Like on Zoom or whatever. And it's not, like, the results are not bearing fruit. Right.
Yeah.
And so there are products and services that maybe can be sold. You never see them, you never touch them, you never, you can do it on Zoom if they have any question or whatever. But, the kind of like high ticket item, and service people that I'm appealing to with the book are the people that has always been done face to face and always will be done face to face. Right. Like if you're selling a guy like a frigate, to move goods around the harbors and whatever, or some kind of tugboat or whatever, you're not going to sell that over Zoom. Right.
Yeah.
Get a grip. The guy's going to want to drive the boat, right? Literally. And so to think you're going to sit at home on Zoom in your pajamas while he's driving the boat around the bay, it's not like, and so back to the punch, perfect pitch, and close. So usually, the idea behind the punch is the state change, right? So when you walk in that boardroom, and most people without fail they fire up the PowerPoint, slides. Oh, I'd like to show you our building in Baltimore where we have 200 people, and our engineering facility is in Denver where we have 14 PhDs, and of course I'm already asleep if I was the customer. And, it's like you're 12 slides in before the guy's even close to getting to the point, or, and so what I say is you need to drive for a state change at the beginning of the presentation, change whatever state they're in. So, and move them into the present moment, fully engaged. Right. And so that can either be, there's many ways you can actually do it. So you can do it by telling a joke, right? You could do it by making a sound, right? I mean, that's not really always very, very appropriate, but, like banging the desk or something like that, right? But
so it's a pattern interrupt is what they call it in NLP. But yeah, exactly. You're changing the moment, so they have to take notice, and then you kind of start fresh, right? From that.
Yeah. And so, so you make a sound, you tell a joke. And so, but the best one that in the world that I always worked in, was basically hitting play and having, a short video that immediately hit them with showing the product, doing exactly what you were pretty sure they needed done in the best way they've ever seen it done. So that they would, see the WSP, and they'd be immediately engaged, right? Imagine you're like, you're a machine that produces, paper cups or something like that or whatever. And they normally spew out at, 2 a second or whatever. And now you turn yours on, and, you're zooming in with the drone through the plant. And all of a sudden, with the music, and all of a sudden, and they see it working 10 times faster than anything they've ever seen, right? And you have, your job as a salesperson is to try to figure out ways to punch them, without punching them literally. And you can do it, right? But people, that are not as successful, they always want to go a step back and go, oh no, I'm just going to do the PowerPoint, and that's the way we've always done it. And,
this really reminds me, Glenn, of let's say in copywriting or sales letters is, the headline,
right.
You got to have that headline to grab attention.
Exactly.
And what you're recommending is that punch piece, is that headline that is relevant, that is capturing attention. And the other salespeople, they're, as they say, burying the headline, right?
Yes,
it's so many slides down, and again, going back to sales letters, your name or your company name as a headline is a deadline, right?
Yeah.
Making it about you is no good. You got to make it about them.
Yeah. And the perfect pitch is, again, I talk about it in different ways in the book, but it also takes on heavily the power of 3, right? Which is the Goldilocks, it's called the Goldilocks principle, right? good, better, best, too hot, too cold, just right, and when you start to get into good, better, best, value deal, like when you start adding beyond the three, it starts to become cumbersome and too hard for the brain to encapsulate, right? And so and also in your perfect pitch, you're gonna tell them what you're gonna tell them and tell them what you told them, right? Obviously, those are three things, power of three. You only want to tell them three things. If you needed four, then there's too much to tell them. You need more than one meeting. If there's only two, then you're not going deep enough, or, it's always about three. Always make it three. That it's just the way I do it. Right? I'm not saying, you have to do it, but I mean, that's the way I always do it, right?
Well,
in the power of three.
And Glenn, I think we've been taught through years of, like, you look at jokes, three guys walk into a bar.
Yeah.
Like you said, three Goldilocks, and,
exactly. Three bears.
There's always threes in stories. And in my background, being a magician, there is a set of threes where the first two set people up for expectations, and the third one, we define that expectation with the trick piece, the switch. And same thing in comedy, right? Like, so all of those things, that is built into us. So don't mess with the system. So
exactly. And so, so the idea is that, you've punched them, and then you have the perfect pitch, which is using the power of three, and you explain three pieces, three things, and you basically, by virtue of the way you've presented it in a way that proves that it does exactly what they need. And then in the close is, you've been successful when the very next thing that happens is they ask you how much it costs, or how do I buy one, or what have you. Now, there are times where you may be in a position where you need to close them on something. But the next thing that happens after the punch perfect pitch is the close. But the best close is the one where the pitch did the job and they weren't asking you how to buy it, right? Or how do I get it in the building to trial it, or how can I take it for a test drive, or how can we test it out, or can we get trial units or demo copies or whatever, right? Next steps, right? And of course, and then I follow all sorts of other rules, like never fax the facts. And they never sit in the lobby. A lot of people, they misunderstand it or whatever. And so one guy asked me, he said, so do I wait in a car? And I'm like, no.
Do I stand in the lobby?
So basically what I mean is always show up exactly on time, announce yourself, and then don't sit down, right? Be waiting and engaged to go when the customer comes out. Don't be on your phone. Don't be engaged with anyone else, right? And literally why I came out with don't sit in the lobby is because I'm only 5'6", okay? So most people are already taller than me. And if I'm sitting and a 6'4" guy comes in, there's like 3 feet difference between me. And I got to rise up to this guy and then, gently, meekly put my hand forward. And I was probably on my phone talking to the wife, chit-chatting or whatever on Facebook. And none of these are a good look, right? And so I'm always waiting at the door. I'm very prompt and attentive. And again, then one of the next rules is always have something in your hand and something in your mind. Right. And so something on your mind, something in your mind. Right. Yeah. And that means, so then they walk through the door, you say hello, you introduce yourself if you don't know them, and you hand them the item that's in your hand. It could be a quote or a brochure, something like that you're engaged with for the moment, or it could be a promo item like a water bottle or a mouse pad or pens, pencils, things that you give away to customers, swag, right? But always have something in your hand and always have something in your mind to talk to them about. And then you'll never be stuck, right? I'm just here to drop off the quote that you asked for, etc. One of the next rules, is always ask for a mini tour, right? And people are always like, what's a mini tour, right? I'm like, well, a mini tour is a tour that's mini. And so, and then of course they're like, what? And I'm like, tours take too long. Nobody wants to go on a tour, right? Like, takes all afternoon, you get on and off a bus, whatever. A mini tour is this, can I see your new office, your new building, your new warehouse, your new lab, your new production line, your new whatever you sell, right? I mean, maybe, can I get but always ask for call it a mini tour, and because it kind of sets them off as well. And then and then if they're sort of confused or whatever, you can say, don't worry, it won't take long. and it's only a mini tour, and I promise I won't sell any encyclopedias while I'm here, right? Which usually they're kind of like, oh, I'm worried, what's he going to do when he gets in there? And and then so 9 times out of 10, they will give you the mini tour, they will take you. And that's where you're going to see that your competitor's already got 9 units installed and you have none, right? And you're the guy keeping the other guy honest. You're not the incumbent, right? The next rules that follow are never forget a face, right? And so while I'm waiting to not sit in the lobby, I'm in my car and I'm going through my never forget a face routine. And that is, I call up on my phone, I go to the account, because usually I deal with a territory, so I've been there before, and I go and I call them up, and and I say, okay, Bob, oh yeah, that's the tall guy, right? Jack, right? Oh yeah, I remember Jack, right? And
So all these little pointers to help you.
And I
just remember.
remember their face. I remember their face, right? And so and so then that way, when I'm on my mini tour and I bump into Jack and Bob and Sally and whatever, I don't have to fumble when they say, hey, Glenn, and I forget, and I know but I can't get it fast enough, right? But I've already remembered it in the parking lot. So I'm like, Sally, hey, how's it going? And this guy, and then this new guy who's giving you the tours thinking, oh, this guy knows everybody, right?
Right.
And
But all this preparation, Glenn, that you're talking about, you come off so much more professional, right? Like, and there's so many similarities too. We do, of course, trade show trainings for companies who are exhibiting, and same kind of things apply. Never sit in the booth. Like, I'm thinking, oh man, that your book pretty much applies to a trade show booth too. Have something in your hand that you can give to people who are walking by. Don't be on your phone. Like, all those engagement principles kind of are so similar between the sales side and then, lead gen and a marketing at a trade show.
Yeah.
But just
my
being
favorite,
and holding that standard higher, right? Like, it's so important.
My favorite time is when I talk to a kind of a younger salesperson that's kind of new and they're looking to make a mark, and they tell me that they're going to a trade show, and I'm like, oh, that's money. And they're like, why? And I said, this is, just trust me and hear me now, believe me later. And as I like to say, and so I explained to them, never sit in the booth, right? And as a matter of fact, the best thing you can do is to stand in the aisle. Right. And then scan the badges. Of course, you've gone through all your customers that you do know and remembered their face. Never forget a face. So when they're walking by, you're not squinting at their badge or it's upside down and you're trying to remember who they are. You've already remembered them, and be on point and have things to hand to them. Like maybe you're giving away pens. Hey, Bob, I haven't seen you in a while. Here's our new pen. By the way, can I show you this new thing? But more importantly, when maybe the traffic's low, then what ends up happening is a lot of people, their ankles get sore or whatever, they want to sit down, and inevitably that does happen. But when you're a junior guy, the booth is filled with the application engineers or the product specialists. There's a VP there, got signed to do trade show duty that day. Maybe you're lucky the CEO's in the booth that day, right? So what you do is you become the most inquisitive person, and you go to every product, talk to every product or manager, and you know what, look, while it's slow, I'm new, can you just go over this product again, and always be on. And then later measure back on how all those executives and higher ups treat you out of the trade show. And the impact that you will have is absolutely career changing and makes all the difference, right? And they're like, oh, that Glenn guy, man, he never sits down. He's I couldn't believe it. He's engaging with people. Oh, he's pulling them in from the bloody aisle. I couldn't believe it, right? And makes a huge difference, right? And
that's great advice, Glenn, because especially early on in a career, early with a company, trade shows are such an amazing learning opportunity. Because, I mean, of course, when I work with our clients, if there's new, product updates and different things, someone asks me a question I don't know, I take them over to a subject matter expert. You listen in on the answer. Now you know it, right? And you're able to just be able to do all of that and bring it together. So,
and I have this one of the things in the book, which other people often ask me about, is what is greed-based learning, right? GBL, right?
That was going to be my next question. So thank you for bringing that up.
Right. What's GBL, right? So GBL, so that's a perfect time you can try to practice it, is at a trade show where, okay, give me my GBL points on this latest product. You're talking to these product guys trying to learn them, right? But the idea behind GBL, again, It's not rocket science. It's about your own understanding, your own sort of capacity to learn and what have you. And so I tell it by an analogy first, and then explain how I used it in the past. So I don't really know anything about cars per se. Like, I mean, I'm just not a car guy, right? I just don't care. And I have a nice car now and I like driving it and it's awesome. But, don't ask me much about it because I really don't know. And I honestly don't care, right? But every 4 years, I become an armchair expert on 3 or 4 cars. And I know everything, the horsepower, the torque, the wheel size, rim size, everything, offset this, exhaust, whatever, seating, square footage, every possible spec I absorb like a sponge, because of the one difference of the rest of the time is that I'm getting one of those cars.
Right. The buying window is open.
My greedy little window of getting a new car is open for business. And I'm able to effortlessly absorb and retain that information, but only until times as I buy the car, then I promptly forget about it. But I don't need to know anything. I don't care if I'm buying, I have a Mercedes now, right? But I might have looked at an Audi or something like that, right? One day I know them both. The day I decide on the Mercedes, I just forgot about Audi and never thought of it ever again, right? Pay it no mind and forgot about all their specs. And so the way I applied it and was in my first sales job, this is how I learned it, and was that we were what's called a manufacturer's representative, and we sold about, approximately 20, it was actually more, but 20 main vendors, from around the world, that sold high-tech products, right? And, these were all complicated, state-of-the-art instruments and their own thing, measuring all different kinds of electrical signals and this and that. And each one of them had 5 or 10 products. And then there was the other, there's probably upwards of 40 brands, right? But there's probably like, 300 or 400 products in the ecosystem that at any point in time, a customer could want. And I was brand new, a young kid, right? How am I going to learn 400 products?
Yeah.
It's virtually impossible. I started trying to read and I would fall asleep and, and I mean, I just couldn't get it. Right. And then what I realized was that what I really needed was to engage with customers with with an open mind and find applications, right? Where I would say, I just needed to remember the brands that we sold and they were listed in front of me and the kind of basic products. And, I'm looking for this, we sold things like oscilloscopes, power supplies, spectrum analyzers, all, and as soon as the guy said that, then I would immediately say, well, you know what? It's funny that I'm going to be in your building tomorrow visiting Bob, with something in my hand, something in my mind. Right. And let me drop off a data sheet, to you on our new spectrum analyzer. And then that night I realized, hey, that's a $23,000 instrument. And my commission on that is X%, right? And I could be making, and I would say, oh my God, I can make that much money. And I would call the factory and I'd say, look, I'm going to be doing this. I have no experience with it. Can you give me the top 5 things why anyone will care about your box? What makes it better? What makes it sing and dance? And how do I sound intelligent in front of the customer? And if I forget something or I need to know more, I'll call you from there, right? And the guy would explain it to me. And because I was able to, this whole greed-based learning thing would kick in, I would be able to absorb it until the next day, right? And over time, they happen to repeat themselves. So eventually it became a learned, these products, I did actually get to learn them. But new ones would come along. I would find a requirement. And then as I like to call it, my greedy little nature would kick in and I would be able to effortlessly learn it. And, and then I would go and present it to a customer and it would become, again, part of my, over time, you would build up a skill set. And before you knew it, you were actually very knowledgeable on a great number of products from a large number of vendors. And you were a very valuable salesperson in the, in the ecosystem. Right. And,
that's interesting, Glenn. It's kind of, it reminds me a little bit how education has shifted now to kind of on demand, like people not going to university or college, right. They're learning on YouTube when they need to. But you're talking about, learning what is needed, when you're incentivized
in real time,
right? Like, on time. Yeah. And so with that, of course you're going to retain that because you're so much more motivated. So I get that kind of greed-based piece to it. And at the same time, you're not wasting your time. Salespeople's times are so valuable on learning about maybe obscure products that
Right.
you would never even have a
Exactly.
chance or opportunity
Yeah.
to. It's kind of like
Right. Yeah.
as needed,
Yeah.
to further the sale. But to do that, of course, you have to know your customer. You have to ask questions and know what they want, right? So, yeah, that's very fascinating. Can I
Yeah.
before we go,
Yeah.
I just want to ask a few other things too.
Sure.
Your book, Never Sit in the Lobby, is on Amazon. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's
Okay.
on all the platforms,
So if
wherever you can
people want
buy
to do
books.
that,
Yep.
and you're available for, do you do keynotes, or what kind
Yeah.
of talk do you
Yeah.
do?
No, I love to. Yeah. That's one of my, my favorite things to do. So, talking, I can, and, working with clients on very specific projects. I
Okay.
still run the business. So, not long-term engagements, but,
Right.
a lot of people engage me on, challenging leadership issues with their team, right? We use the EOS model in my business. It's served us very well, the entrepreneurial operating system, about getting the right people in the right seats. I've come up with numerous compensation plans over the years, which I'm quite knowledgeable about the vagaries of compensating salespeople, and systems and processes for measuring and monitoring your business. And those are the kind of things that I'm passionate about and work with people about.
Nice.
Yeah.
So speaking, consulting, it sounds
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
maybe sales kickoffs and that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
awesome. Well, and where can people get a hold of you, Glenn? What's the
So,
best?
my name is Glenn Poulos. So it's just my name.com, glennpoulos.com. And on there are links to all my socials. If you find me on LinkedIn, that's where I'm most active every day. You'll see a lot of stuff coming out of me. And if you message me there, I will be sure to answer you from there. And you can also contact me from the website and or on any other social media as well. But LinkedIn's a really good way to get a hold of me one-on-one.
Good. And just to be clear too, Glenn, it's Glenn,
Yeah.
and Poulos is Poulos, correct?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Glenn, thanks so much for taking the time and
You're
coming
welcome.
on the show. I know you have so much content. I can just tell by the way that you speak to it. Your expertise is very deep, and maybe we can do this again sometime, because I
Love
think
to.
they have a lot more to
that would
offer.
be great. Thank you, Anders.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for listening to this episode, and until next time, stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement, and you're an industry leader, or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend, or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engagify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and stay engaged.